Hey, my name's Bex. Do you like my new skin? It's based off the new creaking mob from the new update. I even got a custom cape to match. Pretty cool, right? So anyway, here's the formal introduction. Welcome to Chopping Block Season 4. This is the new set. Don't worry, we're still in a void world. I just copied over some terrain from a pale garden. And I built this little shack. This is my shelter. I figure I built such extravagant buildings last time. I don't need much. Alright guys, I want you to come with me and see something. We're just gonna follow this conveniently placed trail right here. And oh, what's this? What are these? So these are all the items that you may notice are really difficult to get in Chopping Block, like way more difficult than they should be to get. So all of these items are really difficult to get. And what do I mean by really difficult to get? I mean that for most of these items, to obtain them, you have to wait for a wandering trader to spawn. And that's a pretty large scale of randomness. It's a low chance that it'll spawn in your world at all. But then also, it's only a chance that it will actually sell any one of these items. And with that large scale of randomness, it's just unfair. And the same goes with most of these, although some of these items are actually completely unobtainable right now. For instance, a lot of banner patterns and pottery shirts, both types of scutes, the heavy core and breeze rod, a lot of the skulk blocks. Also, a lot of armor trims are unobtainable, as well as the heart of the sea and the creaking heart. Now, I'm gonna have to come up with fixes for all of these as time goes on, but for now, I've already thought of a couple. Sorry for the very crude lake, but I just needed to place down a water source to show you sugarcane seeds. Now these are a pretty neat item. Now if I go into survival mode and I hold these, not much happens. I can't place them down really anywhere, except I can place them down on grass blocks and also like dirt blocks. We'll talk about that in a moment, but when you place down the sugarcane seeds next to water in dirt, sand, or grass, it will place sugarcane. And you can't stack them. It's not like that. And if you try to place them on grass or a block where there's not water nearby, then it will just not work. So how this works is, as well as the regular no place tag that my custom items always get, it also has a can place on tag that says, hey, you can place it on these specific blocks. And so when you use the spawn egg, it summons a marker with specific tags. It looks, it says, hey, is the block below me a block that sugarcane can grow on? Yes, okay. Is there a water in any of the blocks next to me? Yes, okay, place the block. And then if any of those are no, then it won't set the sugarcane and it will just place like a regular seed item. I have also, of course, added the pale oak seed. Very easy, very simple, very nice. Okay, so now let's change gears. I've been thinking that enchanting is a little bit too easy through villagers in Minecraft, and for a while I'd been thinking about how to approach solving that. And someone in my Discord server made an amazing suggestion, so shout out to Teapot for this suggestion. But the answer is artisanal books. Now, what are artisanal books that are different from enchanted books? Well, for one, artisanal books cannot be crafted. They are made from fine paper and fine leather, but they are not crafted by the player, which is where villagers come in, because you have to get these materials in the first place. So in order to get an artisanal book, you're gonna need some leather, some bamboo, and a lot of emeralds. So first, you're gonna go to a butcher, and you're gonna level him all the way up to master. And then he will offer you fine leather. You're gonna wanna stock up on this. Then you're gonna go to a cleric and level him all the way up to master. And then you're gonna pay him for some fine paper. Now the fine paper is a lot more expensive then the leather. And once you get enough fine paper and fine leather, you can go to a leather worker, and when he's leveled all the way up, he will offer you an artisanal book in exchange for fine leather and fine paper. Then you will be able to take those artisanal books to a librarian who will trade them in exchange for enchanted books. Now you might be thinking, Bex, why would I go through all of that trouble? There was a bookshelf here. And you might be thinking, Bex, why would I go through all the trouble of getting an artisanal book when I could just enchant a book? Well, you can't. You can't just enchant books anymore. Those are no longer enchantable. Now you can enchant artisanal books, which then become enchanted books. So either way, you have to get an artisanal book in order to get enchanted books. But once you have an enchanted book, if you put it through a grindstone, you get an artisanal book back, so you are able to re-enchant. Now this is actually part 1 of a villager overhaul that I am doing for Chopping Block. Another feature that I have planned is that villagers would not be able to level up or not give good trades if they are in, for instance, a 1x1 hole and unable to move. I also want to find a way to encourage players to not keep villagers in little tiny holding cells and actually keep them in open environments, such as an actual village. And that will give the player some intrinsic motivation to build something like a village in the sky, or maybe a glass dome. There are plenty of things that players could build in order to make villagers feel at home and comfortable while still fitting in with, for instance, the theme of a world, instead of just keeping villagers in tiny little holding cells. Intrinsic motivation that pushes players to build something is pretty good in my opinion, and this is a push to have multiple kinds of villagers in your village. But now I have a dilemma. Right now, you can get enchanted books from fishing, just like before 1.15, and that undermines this whole system a little bit, because in Chopping Block there are no structures to loot in order to get enchanted books, other than a few scarce structures like nether fortresses or strongholds. Generally, enchanted books are hard to come by in Chopping Block unless you have a fish farm. And that's where the problem lies, because if you just have a fish farm, then you don't need any of this, because you can just fish up artisanal enchanted books, and then no matter what's on them, you can just disenchant them and then enchant them yourself. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the fishing loot table. Right now you can get enchanted books with just about anything on them from the fishing loot table. So what if I just removed enchanted books? You would still be able to get enchanted fishing rods and enchanted bows, so you wouldn't be locked out of the good loot that a fish farm provides, and you would still have some incentive to build a fish farm. However, you would not be getting enchanted books. And I know someone would probably suggest to just have the loot table give low-level enchanted books, but then there's still the issue of the player can just disenchant those books and then enchant them themselves, completely skipping the villager part of the game. And considering there are few things in Chopping Block that actually change the progression and the manner of ways that you get things, I think this is important enough that I think I can go back on this. And I am going to remove enchanted books from all fishing loot tables. And yeah, that's gonna suck. But with that aside, you might be thinking, how was I able to modify the default villager trades? How did I do this? How did I change what the villagers are offering? In the wise words of Mumbo Kills-A-Lot Jumbo, it's really quite simple. So every villager is running this function, which is checking for if the villager has a profession and it has no XP, meaning its profession hasn't been logged in, then it will run this function which checks its profession. this code will give the villager a tag depending on which profession it is. If it is a profession that we are modifying, it will give it a scoreboard that we use for later, and then we remove this unimportant tag, and then if it is not any of these professions that we're modifying, it's given an unimportant tag, and this tag just tells the game to not worry about this villager and not tick it because we are never going to have to modify its trades. So then back to this, we have every villager that has been assigned a profession and is not unimportant will run this function that is the important tick function. So basically we have some code here that gives the villager a tag depending on its level, and if its level does not match the tag, then the villager will run this update trades function, which will update its tags so that once it levels up, it doesn't keep running the update function and it doesn't cause extra lag. It sets a scoreboard for us to use, and then we figure out how many trades the villager has available, and this is so that we know where the index of the last trade of the villager is. We'll discuss that later. And then we just make sure that our center entity at the middle of the world has air on its head so that nothing gets messed up. And then we have some functions here. So butchers at level 5, clerics at level 5, and leather workers at level 5 will run these functions that set the last trade, and we're actually going to talk about how we do that. So we'll just look at the fine paper one because the code is all just really similar to that one. We roll 2 random numbers, one between 10 and 49 and one between 9 and 12. These two numbers are going to get multiplied together and then divided by 10 in order to get the cost of the fine paper in emeralds. So what we do is we put a fine paper on the head of our center armor stand, and then we multiply those two numbers from before together in order to get the cost. And this is just the command that multiplies these two values together. And you'll notice all of these blocks of code are pretty much identical except for these numbers here. These are just the different indices for the final trade. This is just because villagers don't have a set number of trades that they will always have. They could have any number of trades. So I just set a range, and hopefully no villager's final trade is below the 6th trade, which I don't think is possible. So that's fine. So what we do is this first score, this is just how many trades a villager has, and so since we're modifying the last trade on the last level, then that score is the number that we are modifying. And so on the last trade, we set the buy ingredient to emerald, and then we set the buy count of those emeralds to 1/10 of the scoreboard value of the buy cost scoreboard, which is the scoreboard that holds the value that we got earlier for multiplying these two numbers. And so if we roll, for instance, 15 and 10, then the buy cost would be 150, and then that divided by 10 would be 15, and so it would cost 15 emeralds for the fine paper. And then we remove the components from the sell item, which I don't think is entirely necessary, but we do it anyway. And then we just copy the item that is on the armor stand's head into the sell slot of the villager, which is of course just going to be a single fine paper. And then down here we just put a bamboo on the center armor stand's head. We roll a value between 4 and 9. We set the buy cost to 1. We multiply those numbers together. I'm doing this just in case I ever want to change this number right here into a range, just because bamboo is pretty cheap once you get a farm, and further testing might want me to charge lots and lots of bamboo for this. But then we just set that to the armor stand count, and then we copy that armor stand item into the buy B slot of the villager. I hope that explanation made sense. You can tell I'm a professional YouTuber because I forgot that my shaders were off until just now. It's too late for me to re-record any of what I just recorded. You guys are just gonna have to deal with the inconsistency. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Alright, so It has been about 3 or 4 days since that last clip, and I have spent a really long time working on this villager happiness system to incentivize players to keep villagers in a large open space. So basically, a villager's happiness is derived from the distance between its bed and its workplace, and then also the distance between itself and each of those 2 points, and its ability to wander around and go to random positions in the world. So essentially, the more space a villager has to move around, the happier it will be, so confining it in a small hole will not get you very good trades. Now, if a villager is happy, they will offer you discounted trades. You'll notice this being 23 paper instead of 24. Now, when a villager is at its happiest possible state, it will offer a 3-item discount on all trades, down to a minimum of 1, of course. But, of course, there needs to be some way to encourage the player to keep them in an open space. So what happens when you put them in a closed one? So now we're gonna put this villager in here in a small space with no room to move around. So I currently have the game sprinting so that the calculations are being run a little bit faster and the happiness is being modified quicker. But you'll see the villager has started raising its prices. It's doing it actively, actually, while we're watching it in this room. And the prices will go up to a maximum of double their original price. So when a villager is unhappy, all the trade prices will be doubled. And the obvious way to fix this problem is to let the villager out into an open area and give them a good bed. And so once you let the villager out into an open area and it's able to wander around a bit more, the trades will start going down. Now, you were able to see the prices change so quickly because I was using commands to speed everything up, but in real time, this process would take a few days. Also, villagers do have a maximum happiness score, so if their bed is right next to their job, but they are able to wander, they will be able to be a little happy because they're able to wander, and you might get some discounts, but they may be unhappy that they're sleeping right next to where they work, and they won't give you the best prices. And I really would love to show you guys how this works, but it is genuinely my most complex data pack that I've made for this, and it would take way too long to go over everything. And so, I will not be doing that. I'm sorry. But if you're in my Discord server, there is a chance that you will be able to play an early version of this data pack as I release it to playtesters. So with the villager happiness mechanic out of the way now, we can take that off of our to-do list. Man, that feels good. Let's go on a walk. Why is it so sunny? It shouldn't be sunny in the pale garden. That's much better. Now, with all that said and done, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this episode. I know this was very monotask this time, but this took a lot of time, and I really want to get this out so I can start working on the next episode. So, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Bex. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content, and I'm out. Bye.